Immersive experiences have revolutionised how we engage with content, creating a paradigm shift in the AV industry. Technologies like experiential projection, mapping and integrated realities are reshaping and transforming live events, entertainment and cultural exhibits. Let's now explore the future of immersive experiences and the pivotal role of the AV industry in shaping it. And to moderate this session, the Senior Audio, Visual and Venue Design Consultant with Arup, it's Mr. Terry Ryan. Welcome, Terry.
Hello. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thanks very much for the intro. So today I'm joined by Anthony Rawson from Propmill, Jay Davis with Arup, who are an integrator, Jeremy Koch, a director at Innovative Production Services, Michael Bosworth from Christie, and Peter Milne from Electric Canvas. So today we're going to talk through the future of immersive experiences. And when we got together to have a bit of a chat and plan this session, there's so much experience sitting here at the on the panel. It was lovely to hear where everybody had been on their journey as part of their career. So I just want to throw to the panel to introduce themselves further and talk about where they've been in their careers. And also, can you tell us briefly about one of your immersive projects?
Sure. I'm Anthony Rawson. I'm from Propmill. We're an experiential design agency out of Brisbane. Primarily, there are three partners who are industrial designers, and we come from industrial design school that is built environment based. So we were in with the architects and the urban planners and urban designers. So we have an affinity for urban spaces as well as architectural spaces, and because we're industrial designers, we're in love with all things, technology and creativity. So it seemed like a reasonably good path to go down. We've been knocking around the built environment traps for I have 25 years. I'm the eldest of the three. But about 12 years ago, we became very interested in projection mapping, which is only part of what we do, but that's partly Peter's fault. I'm just naming him because he was very generous with his time when we started coming down to Vivid to have a bit of a look-see. He very generously came out and talked to us about a couple of Customs House projections, and that really excited us. And we've been involved in, I think, 10 Vivids, with quite a few more than that in terms of installations, as well as other festivals and permanent installations. And that's what we've been doing solely for the last 10 years. The project I want to talk about was the Qantas Founders Museum in Longreach. So we were really blessed there because we had a client who had a good vision, a fantastic set of stories to tell, and just the most amazing setting for the place. So we got to create an immersive projection, lighting, beautiful three-dimensional sound amongst the aircraft. One of Qantas's actually first 747, a 707, Super Constellation, DC-3. They're just fantastic aircraft, and we got to create an immersive experience in the middle of that with, as I say, fantastic sound and projection. So that's the one I'm most proud of in recent times.
Great, thank you,
Jay.
Hello, everyone. I've been in the industry for 10 years. I started at Rutledge, as I'm sure a lot of people in the industry have been part of, or at least know of. I jumped soon into consulting, so was in consulting for 7 years, and recently just joined back as an integrator. I am the engineering manager at Arup Solutions, based in Melbourne. I'm coming from a very different viewpoint in regards to more sales and client relations and how to sell a product. I've worked both on projects Australia and also worldwide. Been very fortunate in that regards. And I also have a very strong background in 3D design, specializing at Revit, and providing that kind of 3D experience to our client before they actually commit to an install. My favorite 3D project, it's not 3D, immersive projects that I've had the pleasure to be part of was the Puff and Billy Learning Centre in Victoria. it was a very cool space where they had an old steam engine that they had painted, where they then projector mapped like the different like versions and the history of the engine and of the space, as well as providing small learning pockets around with the use of projection and directed audio. It was very cool. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome, great. And Jeremy?
Yeah, so I'm Jeremy from Innovative Production Services. My story kind of originates from actually being on stage in performing arts. I have a background of being, in high school or in school musicals and dancing classes and Rockestead and all that kind of stuff. And I naturally was attracted by all the shiny and lighting, sparkly things, and fell in love with lighting and audio and everything like that. And started a business, and here we are 25 years later. We've been on quite a roller coaster ride, certainly in the last few years. But Innovative has a strong but almost hidden trick up its sleeve in regards to installations and projects. It's not something that we kind of actively fly a flag on, but occasionally when those projects come along, we deliver them to a level that we're extremely proud of. And that covers everything from, complex audio designs, multi-point surround sound systems. We've had a lot of that experience move or come from the events world. So obviously where there's a lot of focus here on immersive experiences being more permanent, but often we get event producers and clients that want a temporary immersive experience. I don't think I've said the word immersive more in my life in the last 12 months than we have at the moment, but it's, let's use it while we can. And probably one of my favorite projects, because we've done everything from, multi-projection blends onto organic surfaces that don't have a single straight line on them, which has just been, 3 days of warping and kind of rocking in the corner at the end of every night. Well, actually, sorry, when the sun comes up, because we're only allowed to blend at night when the venue's not being used. But one of the coolest immersive experiences that we did was just with 42 light globes and 4 moving lights, and then Dolby Atmos headphones. I can't take credit for the soundtrack that was created, but this was, I guess, one of the interesting sides from my perspective. I was given the opportunity to be the resident lighting designer or artist on this project. It was for Hendrix Gin, actually. It was a very cool tour that went around the country. But we had to make an immersive experience, or I chose to make an immersive experience out of just light globes and 4 moving lights. And it's, I'm happy to tell anyone about the story. I won't go into it now, but it was an interesting opportunity, or more to the point, it was interesting to make something immersive that was not of the usual components that you might associate that concept with.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Jeremy. And Michael?
G'day. So my name's Mike Bosworth. I'm the person in charge of the enterprise division for Christie on a global basis. My history really has always been mixed up with combining images with audio. Started off in professional photography, which then moved me into working for a rostrum camera manufacturer for the animation industry. That then moved me into as digital started to take effect, to an electronics manufacturer who was producing products for simulation. And then from there, I moved into other areas of the industry, which really are trying to combine images with audio and motion to create an experience for an audience, whether it be for a commercial outcome in terms of training or whether it's for entertainment. My favorite one, that's really, really tricky. I'm a bit like a kid. Every time I get into a new immersive experience, I just love the hell out of it. So, I saw the museum up at Longleat. I just took a train trip out there to have a look at that. Fantastic. I've seen some of Peter's work on buildings. Absolutely fantastic. So, I've been to Awasal Dome in its own way. That was really an amazing immersive experience where they told a lot of cultural stories from the region. So I guess anywhere where you can get a group of people to experience a story and a narrative using the combination of the 3 different things like sound, movement, or images, that's what I like.
Sure, great. Thanks, Michael. And Peter?
Good afternoon. Like Jeremy, I fell in love with lighting and sound at school, probably too early, in primary school, in fact, and I've been chasing it ever since. So in 1997, I started a company called the Electric Canvas, and the idea was that I'd seen some projection mapping in Paris on a very small scale in a tiny room in the Eiffel Tower on the first level of the Eiffel Tower with scrolling projectors. And I thought, this is interesting. And I was out there the next day. They spoke English, which was good because I didn't speak French, and discovered they had giant projectors. So we brought those back to Australia after following them around trade shows for a couple of years. And we were doing architectural projection from 1997. It wasn't called mapping then. It wasn't until some years later it was called mapping, but we didn't know that. It didn't matter. And the thing that made us a bit different is that we wanted to do not only the tech, but the content under one roof, and to make sure that that was integrated in such a way that made it more than some of its parts. And we still do that today. We've got a multidiscipline art department. We either create content from concept to completion, or we assist with curated artists or artists from other genres that we're asked to partner with to turn their visions into something which is architecturally successful and worthy of an immersive moniker. Sound is very important in our world, and it's probably one of the things I'm most critical about when I see either immersive or any sort of large-scale projection that immerses the public. And what is immersive? Everything from theatre to closed rooms, anything with a door on it, anything that you can't get away from. It's all immersive. So it's really important to have an integrated view of what the experience is, and even more important that it is technically transparent. I mean, the last thing you want to do, and take this from theatre, is enjoy an experience and identify the technology that made it popular. It should totally be out of your mind. And I've been lucky recently. Well, if you ask me about our favourite immersive type project, we've got many, but I'd like to say that my favourite projects are the ones I see in other parts of the world that really inspire me to bring back to my team. And I was recently lucky enough to be in France for a couple of weeks, and I saw many immersive shows. Some of them in purpose-built buildings, some of them in reworked industrial, or even in submarine pens in Bordeaux from World War II. All different experiences, all with their own merits and some criticisms, but really inspiring. And the most inspiring, I suppose, was in a very big theme park that nobody would have heard of, called the Puy de Fou, 55 hectares, 6 hotels, celebrating the history of that region of France, all the way from medieval times up to virtually the end of World War II. And they most recently opened a show, I think in 2021, called The Mime and the Star. The mime being a mime artist and the star being a movie star. And it's basically, the premise is you're on the set of a black and white silent movie, and they're getting set up to do the day's shooting, and there's scenery. And once you've sat and all the funny business has gone on with the makeup artist and the electrician setting fire to the place and all of that, the show begins with the mime and the star. They're dressed in black and white, and all the scenery's black and white. What you don't realise is the scenery's being projected onto. And what you also don't realise at first is you're seeing 20 metres of scenery, but the scenery's 100 metres long on a racetrack style track. It's three-dimensional scenery. There's rooms and buildings the cast can go into, and upstairs, and you see them in an upstairs bedroom. And that can move at up to 2 metres a second in either direction, all with the projection mapped. So you might see the same scenic elements 3 or 4 times during the show, but they're mapped differently. Might be restaurants. Next time you see them, there might be houses. There might be shops. And it's an amazing story told in that basis. And it's got also 2 moving walkways, bi-directional walkways downstage of that. So, when our stars get on a World War I style motorbike with a sidecar and the motion blur on the projections, you actually believe that they're driving along this street in this French city. Amazing experience, purpose built, obviously, and perfect sound. Of course, every French thing I see over there has got excellent sound, both compositionally and deployment. So it's those sort of shows where I go, if I didn't know that was projection, I wouldn't know, and that ticks a big box for me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And for me, I started out studying music. I studied at Box Hill TAFE in Melbourne, and then got a job at the Victorian College of the Arts. So I was there 11 years in the music school there, driving the truck, making concerts happen, being an AV tech, and then later as a venue technical manager. There at the College of the Arts. And then in the end, went on to consulting because in all these venues that we worked in, the stuff was never in the right spot. The mixing console, you couldn't plug it in where you wanted. The creativity and innovation couldn't happen in these spaces because the infrastructure wasn't designed properly. So I've been a consultant for the last 14 years or so, 4 years with Marshall Day, 4 years with ACOM, and now almost 6 years with Arup. And the innovative project that I want to talk to you about very briefly is the digital bricks at the Science Gallery at the University of Melbourne in Victoria. So it has 226 digital screens that are all high definition, and the screens are sat behind transparent glass bricks that are part of the structure. And it's part of a $500 million precinct at the University of Melbourne. And essentially, they wanted to be really creative with the facade of the building, and there were different ideas to light up the side of the building and do different things. But in the end, they chose a story, If These Walls Could Talk, which was the story of the glass bricks, being able to put images and stories there at the entrance to the Science Gallery. And two other things about that project: we were able to build a wonderful prototype with the bricks and the screens, and with a couple of contractors as part of the process of innovating. It was checking that the concept was going to work, and that everybody, the stakeholders that were putting the money in, the designers, and the content, the people making the content, could all have a sense of what it was like. And the second part is that it won a fabulous award, a global award in Amsterdam, as a media architecture the winner of a section in media architecture. So that was during COVID. Nobody got to go and accept the award, which is really sad, but it's great to be part of that immersive and innovative project. So today, I think Anthony's going to kick us off with some work on our definitions. What is an immersive audiovisual experience?
Okay. Because of this panel, I've had occasion to think about this a bit more in the last few weeks. And I think I had always assumed when we were talking about immersive experiences that it was really to do with scale and the amount of impression you left on someone's senses. But I realised that what we actually do is that we have a number of like a population scale. So you have individual immersive experiences like headsets or AR or VR experiences. You can have a singular experience in a small space that scales up to social experiences like large architectural mappings and big interior mappings. One of the first jobs we did was a thing for Rio Tinto where we recreated a mine inside the Customs House in Brisbane, so that Rio Tinto's main investors could have this experience of seeing the machinery at scale. It has to do with the affordances given to people's senses. So the more of someone's senses you can take up, and you have to be very gentle with this because you can upset people, you can make them motion sick or whatever, but the immersion, that metaphor for being submerged, comes from filling up people's senses, and they have the senses of sight and absolutely vitally sound. but also touch and smell and you, not so much taste, but that's part of it. The more you can control someone's senses and push out the distractions, the more immersive the experience is. What I think we're mostly concerned with are collective immersive experiences where more than one person can share an experience, because individual immersive experiences like headsets and things like that, the technology gets in the way. And that's okay for an individual, but it's not great for any kind of social experience. And I think we're social creatures. And so I think Peter's absolutely right. The degree to which the technology vanishes from your perception is the degree to which you've succeeded.
Sure. And Jeremy, did you have something else to add to that, maybe about mobile phones?
Yeah, well, my original comment was, or my thought process on the concept of immersive, I too often thought that it was all about being immersed in the literal sense of the term. But someone actually pointed this out to me the other day. It was completely off topic as far as it had nothing to do with immersion from an AV or experience perspective. But it brought up the topic of being immersed in a moment. And it's actually the opposite in the sense that you can be immersed in a moment because everything else is blocked out. So we have the key of creating something massive, and we've spoken about projects on scale, but that's actually probably a key to the smaller immersive projects in the sense that you have to control the external influences, because if you can control them or you can remove them from the picture, then you've naturally created an immersive experience by removing everything else. I guess it's the difference between additive lighting and subtractive lighting. It's that kind of vibe, which completely changed my perspective or knowing about it, even though subconsciously we've already done it on a couple of projects.
Yes, and maybe it's an immersive, you're in an immersive experience when everybody puts their phones away.
That was the measure of how immersive something is. That if everyone puts their phones away and they're not even taking photos of the experience, then you have achieved your goal of capturing their attention.
And I think it's partly to get that wow moment, which is a part of it as well. It's the individual sensation of, gee, this is amazing. And as you said, Peter, you kind of forget about how it's done and you get totally immersed in the experience. The next question I have is for Peter. How have immersive experiences evolved over the past decade, and has audio kept up with vision?
Interesting question. I think that immersive's gone past its infancy stage of the big white box, and thank goodness. I don't think sound has followed it, especially in our parts of the world. It's such an important thing, and I've seen so many or experienced so many experiential offerings that have been let down by sound. And if it's a purpose-built venue, it starts with the acoustics. I mean, the Australian Pavilion at the last expo in Dubai was totally ruined by poor acoustic design, and no matter what the sound designers could do, they couldn't get over the fact it sounded like it was in a big shed. Whereas the Al Wasl Dome with 27.1 sound, which was rife with opportunities for failure, was brilliantly designed, installed and tuned by an Australian, Scott Wills Allen Auditoria, and you couldn't fault it. And that was a giant challenging space with a dome, which always has a focus, which is very ugly when it comes to sound. And we were talking about the sphere earlier, and never create a spherical sphere for that reason. And I think that audio's got a long way to come. I mean, we walk around, lots of other people's festivals, and we're involved in festivals, and we hear sound that's meant to be associated and supporting, beautiful projection mapping coming from behind you, because it's easier to put speakers on the projection towers than it is to use a radio link across to the building. It's just things like that. And, not taking the opportunity in this day and age to do multi-point sound where you could drive people's focus. Quite often some of these big buildings that we work on are much wider than you are a distance away from them. So it's really important that you can control focus. And a lot of people who design these shows are challenged by the relationship between their 32-inch monitor and an 80-meter wide building. And you need all of the sound tricks in the book to help you with that. As I alluded to earlier, this recent trip through France, and I've had many of them over the years. They really know how to do that well. They know how to drive focus. All the sound is perfect, whether it's indoors or out. It's really, really high quality, and I think that's what needs to be addressed. I've been in big immersive box things in Australia, and they've just decided to run mono or stereo sound when they should be running 16 channels of sound. And to give you an example, there's an immersive project we got involved in at Sydney Opera House quite late. We were called in to help with some real world experience, and it was it was called TIDE, Total Immersive Digital Experience, and it's still running, I think, and it's a very small room, but it uses all the shapes that you'd expect in the concert hall, and the concert hall was shut down at that time for renovation, and they want to keep the tours going. And it's a tiny room. I think you can fit 20 people in there, and you're immersed. It was 9-channel, 9 projector show, ceiling, walls, and you're immersed with the life of the concert hall since the Opera House was open. And it's got 16 channels of Dante sound for 20 people. And it just makes such an immersive difference to you're actually there. You're in the concert hall. You're surrounded. You're feeling that acoustic, and it's all artificial. So I think sound is overlooked. It's the poor relation, even in broadcast and in screen content. It's generally the poor relation. And in our business, we try to emphasize to our designers that even if we're doing something, might be something on the Opera House where there's no opportunity for sound, make up a soundtrack or use a soundtrack or use a click track to get a visual rhythm going. And a good example of that is in 2020, we were asked to relive Kathy Freeman's famous 400-meter run, which I think lasted 40-something seconds on the Opera House. So I made the art department actually listen to the commentary from the stadium and designed the piece to that, to capture the energy of the audience, the energy of the commentators, and it made a big difference to how we cut that piece together. And it translated that way. So I even if you can't reproduce sound, you can use sound. You can develop visual rhythm and control the story arc and the energy of the piece by referencing a soundtrack. So even if it's not going to be reproduced, if there are no speakers, it's still a useful tool.
And does anyone else want to talk about audio in immersive experiences?
Yeah, look, so I'll bring it back to where probably everybody in this room has experienced it. And I'm going to go out of what we're talking about, which is the outside entertainment. Let's go to cinema. Cinema probably is the one industry that really have worked hard on this. And we've all experienced when you go to some cinemas, they've been done at a budget level. They've got speakers down the side, speakers at the back. They've got the image at the front, and their idea of immersive is just to whack the volume up as high as it can and you get blasted. But then you can go to a premium screen. And you go to a premium screen where they have put a lot of speakers in all over the roof, down the sides, and they've really got that balance. And they try to project the audio the way that the film director actually intended it. So when a plane flies over, the plane literally flies over. So something that we can all relate to is when we go to cinema, we've been to cinemas which are really, really great, and we walk out there with, that was a really amazing film. And then you go and sit in another theater and you walk out there and go, where's the Panadol? And there's, the difference between how audio can make such a difference.
Yeah, okay, sure. And for me, it's the Acme permanent exhibition in Melbourne that I got to work on, which has 110 channels of audio. It's a screen gallery. I'm sure you've all heard of it. And so to be able to create immersive experiences in there, Arup didn't design the soundtrack, but we worked with the artist, and we worked with a whole lot of artists that developed pieces for that gallery, and we helped to bring it all together in the end. So there are ways to do it, but I agree it can be challenging, and sometimes there aren't the budgets to make the for audio would seem like it's the cheaper part of it, but it doesn't. For some reason, it doesn't always happen like that.
I just want to add, in the events world, we have this saying that no one leaves the concert humming the light show. If you want people to remember your immersive experience, make a good audio track and a good audio experience.
Okay, so I have a question for Michael and then for Jay. So, Michael, how is new technology shaping innovation in the AV industry, and what makes a great immersive experience?
So from our perspective, I think Peter encapsulated it. If people can go to a great immersive experience and walk out and not even think about the technology that was behind it, that's an absolute win, which is a crying shame because we want people to know it's one of our products that are in there. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But how's the technology moving? Well, really, you've got a lot of other ways that people can have immersive experience, and Anthony just addressed on it. Head-mounted displays probably took immersive experiences to another dimension because suddenly it was available to everybody, and you could have, right from your Samsung phone being put into a cradle, it gave you some sort of an immersive experience, through to very expensive headsets that cost tens of thousands of dollars for the resolution. But what they've done is they've made people accustomed to the fact they can experience these things. So when they go to something that we do, which is a collaborative experience, we have to pay particular attention to the detail of what they're actually looking at. So from a Christie perspective, that means color saturations, really, really high contrast images that give people that wow factor of what they're looking at. Because if we don't do that and we don't allow our partners to deliver a good image through our equipment, no matter what they do in their audio or any of the other sides, people are going to criticize the experience. Okay, and they all actually work hand in hand. If you've got really bad audio and a really good image, it's also the experience is not going to get the accolade that you're looking for. So we're constantly looking at ways of increasing that visual experience for the customer, making sure that we can give them something that's closest to reality as possible, to the color gamuts that the eye can physically see, and then allowing the tools so that our partners are able to use our equipment in their production, understand how they're making their content, so that they can maximize the use out of our projectors. So that's probably the biggest fundamental that's changing.
And it's changing in line with audience expectations, which I think are going up as well. So the projectors are getting more powerful, the experiences are getting better, but our audiences want better experiences as well. And Jay, can you talk to us about modelling and visualising projects, perhaps out of Revit, while in the design stage? Can this give clients the confidence to proceed with immersive projects?
Yeah, definitely. These projects consist of so many moving parts that do come at such a high cost, and to try to convince a client to invest in that can be quite challenging. We were actually just talking about this before. And a lot of the time when you write something down in or show some photos, the client doesn't really get the full concept of it. So with the ability of 3D design, I specialize in Revit, but I do know that there is other programs out there. And using the technology like the VR headset, it's all good, no stress. Don't worry. Being able to use technology in that way to share the potential product, and be like, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're investing in, and being able to show that in early stages. And also giving them an ability to be part of the design process, to be able to oh, I love that. That's really cool. Or how about this way? Where there's a lot of trust that clients put in on us. And even though we come from years of experience, especially the people I'm surrounding myself with, no, collectively. But being able to they don't have that understanding, they don't have that knowledge, they don't have that education, and that's what we need to be there to provide that. And having visual representation to show what we're providing is so important.
And from my experience, it helps clients that are spending $500,000 or $1 million on an installation actually commit that money and go, we want to build an immersive project. We now understand what it is. We can see on the drawings what it is, but we didn't really get it until we stood there and saw it, or saw it on a device that brought us right in an immersive way to what that experience is going to be.
Also, another thing I want to do is like, don't be afraid for bringing your clients to other existing spaces. Like, it is all great to show something digitally, but there is so many amazing products worldwide. Like, really get them to be in front of it and experience it, and the importance of the quality, and like the importance of the audio and all that kind of stuff. Because again, a lot of clients see that number at the bottom of the page where you're like, okay, this is to actually being like, to physically showing them what they're going to achieve is like, oh, what they're going to be getting is invaluable.
And how do integrators approach projects that are creative and immersive? How can the integrator bring together the client, the manufacturer, and content to execute the vision?
Oh, it's so important. Trying, like, you have to, like, when you're getting a project, we all want the same thing. We all want a good outcome. So I know some people find it difficult to reach out and, or it's like, oh, okay, it's very separate. But we should be collaborating. So getting everyone in the same room and introducing to the right people. So as an integrator, or even as an early age as a consultant, introducing that and then getting that really clear idea. So getting the general scope and then finding the correct people or the correct devices and getting those specialists to be able to provide that information is really important. So like, yeah, if I got a project for an immersive environment, like I would contact Christie and then, or everyone, just to like sit down and like kind of show examples and whatnot. Because as an integrator, I work on many different avenues, so being able to have that support from our suppliers is important.
Help to bring it all together.
Yeah, exactly.
And Anthony, are client or audience expectations changing? How do you know a client is ready to go on a journey of an immersive project?
Expectations definitely changing. The clients are becoming more sophisticated, and I think you said earlier that their experience of good sound and good vision is ever increasing. They become more literate, so that's just to be expected. There is a bit of a trap there though, because we want to create, because it's a creative industry, we want to create really amazing experiences for everybody. But the client needs to be ready to embrace that. Now, in the case of an event or a festival, the experience is the whole product, and that's what you're selling, and that needs to stack up in the short term. In the case of a permanent installation, you've got to be careful not to talk your client into something that they don't need, which is just an unfortunate side effect, because we can get excited about things, but when clients looking at a capital expense, you have to also remember there's that sort of operational life of the installation, and if they don't have people who are interested in keeping this a vital ongoing thing, or don't actually have a really compelling reason for it, you're in danger of talking them into something that they don't really need. And we can make it look exciting. We've got the skills to make it look exciting. We can use the technologies that we hope to deploy, like individual immersive experiences. We can use those to convince people or show people what the design is like. But we have to, you have to reflect on whether or not it's what's indicated. The great thing, though, is that when you find a client who has that receptiveness and that vision, you can communicate with them using immersive technologies to create an immersive experience or collective experience.
Sure. And it's so important, not just that first 15 minutes of content that they might put the money into for the opening day, but it's it's that maintenance over time, to have the skill to do it in-house, or the budget to go elsewhere to maintain that experience. And I have a question for Jeremy. Can we have an unlimited amount of displays now? Is our imagination really the limit for our projects? Can the hardware pretty much do anything?
This is an exciting one because I get to take the designer hat off and I'll put my propeller head on, spin that propeller full speed. I think probably now more than ever, as you would expect with technology, is a very exciting time because there are so many ways that the computers have increased their horsepower when it comes to physical outputs. I remember when you were kind of shelling out $50,000 for a 2-output media server not that long ago, and now your 50 grand's possibly going to get you 8 outputs at 4K. It's quite amazing how far the technology has come. But also the signal transport is a very exciting thing, and I think it's a big part of projects from an integration point of view, but also making things easy. Anytime you go and do an installation or a live event, and I'll be the first to put my hand up to support SDI, because you plug it in and it just works, which is awesome. But as soon as you go to networking technology and IP technology for transporting signals, you've got to go and get your networking friend to help you do that. Now, we've got companies like Netgear that are helping solve these problems, but the advantages of technologies like SDVoE and SMPTE 2110, it's very emerging, and I just had to look down and remind myself what we're talking about here. But this is the evolution of signal transport, and the power that gives you, because all of a sudden, when we're looking at a facility and we're trying to create an immersive solution, it's like, well, we need a speaker over there now, and we need a projector over there, and we hadn't thought about that. And this is more obviously in the design phase. Part of the equation, if you're thinking money as well, because obviously everything is limited by money. Your outputs are unlimited and your displays are unlimited, while ever the budget is unlimited. But if this is significantly easier from a signal transport point of view, then adding that projector or that display or that speaker in that obscure location is less of a challenge now, and there may be less cost involved in adding that. And then the other exciting thing that goes hand in hand with all this is that the IP technologies transporting this signal are also involving many, many audio channels. 2110 by default, I think, is 32 channels, and you can actually push that to 64 channels, fully redundant, over one IP stream. SDVoE does 16 channels. So this is all per output. One projector could have, if you do your audio de-embedding up there, you could have 16 outputs at each projection location. Big possibilities there. Definitely exciting, totally unlimited. Show me the money.
All right. Can I now throw to the audience for some questions? Does anyone have any questions? All right, I have one or two more questions for the panel, but feel free to.
I might ask folks, and from personal experience, just to maybe warm up the audience a bit, the Aber Voyage experience at Mill Pond Road in London has spoiled concerts for me forever. And it's not just the projection, of course; it's the work that's done in terms of the staging that is translated also into. I'm not going to call it projection because it's a LED screen, of course, but it's just. The convergence of all the technology, or the synergy of all the technology, is the most amazing part, I think, of that experience. Beyond what the Sphere does in Las Vegas, because that is just a surface. But Aber Voyage is beyond that. It actually takes the experience into the audience as well. Are there challenges that you find as techs working mainly in the screen business, if I can make that assumption, and then actually having to take it into the disciplines of staging, lighting, even the level of mist that was in the venue matches the level of mist in the video presentation. That's what creates the illusion so well. So do you see that working with those disciplines as part of the challenge of immersive experiences as well? Who's working in the area of working with the staging guys and the lighting guys as much?
I'll add one thing. Like, everything that you've spoken about there is obviously amazing, and I really want to see this show now myself. But one of the reasons why that show is obviously so good is because of the producers and the creative people driving that. And from the integration side and the technical side, we can all do our jobs very well, but it's also up to those creative people to be insistive of using good technology and delivering a very good result. Because if you don't have someone driving that, then, you've got the money side of that show, which are obviously the producers. Their relationship with the creatives is tight, and that's why they're getting the money to do that project. So if you're working with people that are driving that and driving the excellence, then there'll be a need for us to deliver the tech side of things.
Pete?
I'd like to add to the ABBA Voyager. I saw that in January, I think. And it is an amazing example of convergence of different skills and different technologies. But the first thing you've got to consider is the time it takes to do what they did. To be able to match the atmospherics in the room with the atmospherics that were on the screen. It's a screen experience, but I challenge anyone that goes there to find the screen. They don't show it to you when you walk in. You can't see it. And the moving lights in the room, matching the moving lights, colour, intensity on the playback material, that takes a huge amount of time, and a purpose-built venue with a long production period is very important. Trying to do that in like an Olympic ceremonies or any other public event is much, much more difficult because of the compressed timeframes and the limited resources for production, especially if you're sharing venues with sporting preparations. But ABBA, if you get a chance, if you're in London, you get a chance to see ABBA Voyager. I wasn't an ABBA fan, still aren't, but that's a fantastic show, and it's a great example of what can be done with integration between the real and the unreal.
And that's a live band.
And the thing that sells it is the fact that there is a live band there.
Yeah,
so
integrated.
that bridges that gap, and it doesn't leave you with that doubt about, or that opportunity to say, oh, well, this is just smoke and mirrors, which it is. But the live band is a very, very important part of the whole thing.
Sure. And I've got a question for Jeremy. Is AI and machine learning utilised in immersive experiences? Is this something that we can look forward to for the future, or is it here now?
The robots. No, they're here already. They're here. I see massive application for AI in developing and enhancing environments from the perspective of we've designed our show. We now need to, particularly generative AI, we need to potentially use that to generate the ambisonics in the audio. And that's where AI could help significantly with mixing and producing all the extra tracks. Because again, as Peter was just saying, with the development of the ABBA show, the pre-production time on a show like that is massive. So yeah, we're chasing the money for the gear, but you've also got to find the financial viability of the project for the pre-production elements. And anyone that's worked in content creation knows how quickly that can explode into arguably more money than the actual project of installing the tech. But this is where AI can help with this, because we may only have to make, for want of a better phrase, the stereo tracks or the primary tracks, and then AI will then divide that up and give us our 32 tracks for the environment. And it may also help with generative content creation for filling out the peripherals in our spaces. So yeah, as much as I'm not an AI evangelist, I can definitely see a big use for that in enhancing that workflow to produce that at a lower cost.
It's certainly producing incredible artworks. One of the ones I saw was at NGV with a 10 metre by 10 metre screen, where the artist had consumed the images from the whole internet and was pumping out patterns from all of those images. It was a few years ago now, but it was certainly very immersive and very creative.
Was that a question? Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let me just get this. Yeah, last one.
Sorry, guys. I work a bit with Anthony, just, full disclosure. Projection and scale, or these things and scale. So one of the things I think Peter was talking about earlier was this idea of the relationship between a 32-inch monitor and a building. It's always one of the things that I think your particular work does well. There's a lot of little things to see. What I'm really interested about is how do you I know we spend a lot of time in things like VR and stuff trying to figure out scale and movement and speed. One of the things that happens to us a lot is you have to slow everything down about 100 times because things are bigger in real life. I was just going to ask, when you're prevising all of this stuff, so when you design this stuff, how much of this stuff do you actually, and not just Peter, but the whole crew, how much do you simulate or prototype or try these things out at scale as compared to at a sort of a minor level?
If I could just answer that first, unfortunately, you don't get the opportunity to do that very often, and a lot of it is instinctual. But since we've purchased a high-end LiDAR scanner, at least now we can immerse our creatives in the whole environment. We just don't scan the building; we scan the whole park it's facing, or the whole streetscape. So we can put people in different areas and say, well, what are the people over here going to see, and how fast have you got that object moving across your screen? It looks fine on your screen. Could be nauseating if you're standing in front of the building. So look, it is difficult. A lot of it gets down to experience and instinct. You can't always send your creatives to go and sit in the sun in front of a building for a couple of hours to immerse themselves in the scale and in the environment. Sometimes you can, and we do when we can. But a lot of it gets down to experience, but it's a constant reminder to make that leap between, your studio environment, your nice black monitor in a dark room, and an environment that's in the urban landscape with street lights and passing traffic and noise and all of that. That's the biggest problem is, hey, it looks great on black, but there is no black. All of those sort of things that have to be constantly reminded to people that create content. And you can always tell when you see mapping content that's been designed by purely a designer, a graphic designer, all of those things come to fruition or come to the fore. But it takes that leap. And that's why we put together the technicians and the creatives all the time, is to impart and blur that line between those knowledge bases and those skill sets.
And Jeremy, does the content always work?
Definitely not.
All right. Well, I think we might wrap it up there. Thanks very much for your time, everybody on the panel. I hope that's been an informative session about the future of immersive and immersive technology.
Yes.